Hello everyone, this is Susan Finch of Susan Finch Solutions, and today I am here to get a market update for the Denver area, for the housing market, from Wade Perry, who is a managing broker at Coldwell Banker Devonshire. Wade Perry, we're so glad to get this update from you, and I'm looking forward to doing this series with you.
You know, Susan, the market is changing rapidly all across America. Denver is a vibrant city with a vibrant economy, and so it's changing rather dramatically quarter by quarter and in some instances month by month. But the outlook is very, very rosy here in Denver, and I too am excited about doing this every month with you.
Well, let's go ahead then and talk about where were we the prior month and what has been the percentage of change?
You know, it's a really good question. We're still just coming into the year-end data. So what I'd really like to do, because last year was such a watershed year for change, let's take this back, and if I were to categorize 2013 in one word, that word would be low. We had very low inventory. In March, April of last year, we sat at roughly 6,700 properties available for sale. That may sound like a lot, but when you compare that to July of 2007, when we had 31,989 properties for sale, it's kind of like that game of musical chairs. When you take chairs away, they become more valuable. So we saw a drop in available inventory of about 82% at the low point. And with demand remaining constant and with interest rates at that time hitting about 3 5/8, we saw a feeding frenzy here in Denver. We would see open houses, and there might be 45 parties lined up down the block waiting for that open house to open, and they might have 12 contracts by that night. That's not a healthy market. So what's changed is that we have seen inventory rise about 50% since then. So we're sitting in the 9,000s right now, which is a much more healthy place for us to be. There are several things that are going to fuel this on an ongoing basis, and we should see more supply come onto the market this year so that we don't see that feeding frenzy. It still favors the seller, and we will still see the market do very well. We won't see the 10% price appreciation that we saw in 2013, which is a very, very robust rate of growth in terms of price appreciation here in Denver. We typically run more along the historical average, maybe in the 3s and 4s over long time periods. And we really don't see the wild swings that you see on the coasts, east and west, where you might see 20, 30% a year, but we also don't see the bust years that they see. So here's what we're looking at for 2014. That all starts with the economy. Right now here in Denver, we are looking at our lowest unemployment rate in 5 years. We're sitting at about 6.7%, down dramatically from the high, which was closer to 9 or 10. Now, some people will ask, well, what does that have to do with housing? Well, I'd say that roughly 80, 90% of the people who are buying a property, Susan, they need a loan. And if there's one thing that you have to get a loan, it's a job. So it just stands to reason that more people that have jobs, the more people that can qualify for loans. So we see a much more robust economy here in Denver based on that. Let's take it one step further. The other day I counted 18 cranes up in the sky around Denver. You don't see 18 cranes just because guys want to go play with their cranes. They're building, and they're building big here in Denver, which is great news. Now, another thing that happens with that, when we build a house here in Denver, and this varies in every state across the country, for every new home that is built, we add about $70,000 to our GDP or our economic output. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but if we build 1,000 new homes, which would really not be very big, that might be 4 or 5 communities. 1,000 new homes put $70 million into the budget of Colorado. If it was 10,000, it'd be $700 million. Those are big numbers when you start thinking about a state economy. Now, the adjunct to that is all those houses have to be built by some people, don't they? People have to swing a hammer. People have to put up the framing, put in the plumbing, put in the electrical. And all of those people for the last 5 years have not had good employment. So this becomes kind of cyclical in that the unemployment's low, builders are building, the guys that are actually swinging the hammers have jobs, it starts to feed on itself, and the economy starts to get better and better. So The economy is much better. The public feels better about housing here in Denver. So there's definitely a vibe here. And, oh, yeah, there's that little thing that's going to happen in, I think it's about 11 days. What's they call that? Oh, yeah, the Super Bowl. That might add a little excitement here to Denver. So overall, it's a great, great time to be here. Let's flip that or move a little bit more into the specifics of what's going to happen. You will see inventory rise this year. That's a healthy thing. We had a lack of supply to a dangerous level last year, as I mentioned earlier. It got real frothy. So what's going to drive this increase in inventory? Couple things. Number one, as I mentioned, you've got cranes out. There's a lot of home building going on. Number two, we have roughly 3 million people across the United States, not just here in Denver, but 3 million in the United States, who a year ago had their home equity underwater, meaning they owed more on their house than their house was worth. Therefore, they could not sell their home without bringing money to the closing table. Now, 3 million people across the country who were underwater a year ago now have positive equity in their home and have the ability to sell. Are they all going to sell? No. But there are a lot of them, I surmise, that have wanted to sell but couldn't until right now. So we'll see supply grow by the builder and by the people who heretofore could not sell for the last year. So supply will increase. Let's move to demand for a moment. Investors, probably not as active as they were a year ago. You look at 2012, our market was up about 7-ish. Last year we were up 10. We've seen about a 17% increase over the last 18 to 24 months. The investor who really likes to get in at that deep bargain discount, that environment probably doesn't exist the way it did in the past. Will they still be part of the market? Absolutely, just not as many of them. Let's go to the first-time home buyer. They will be out in force. Right now, no, not as big because rates have creeped up, and we'll address that in a moment. But if I look back, right now we have a vacancy rate in Denver of 1.6%. Let me say that again. A vacancy rate of 1.6%. That means that 98.4% of all apartments, condos, rentals are occupied. To find a rental and find that it's affordable is very difficult. Let me mute that. So, am I muted now? Okay. So with that said, rents are going up at about 11% a year here in Denver proper. When I look at that compared to a mortgage, especially when you factor in the mortgage interest deduction, it is significantly cheaper to own than it is to rent. So you'll see a lot of these people who they've now been renting for several years. Maybe they were foreclosed on, maybe they lost their home, whatever it may be. It also could be this pent-up demand of young people who are still living at home because the economy wasn't very good the last several years, who are going to be out in force trying to buy. So we're going to see an increase in supply. Demand should even out. Investors washing away a little. Some first-time home buyers may be coming in. So that demand should stay somewhat static. Supply, as I mentioned, will increase. Let's go to interest rates for a moment. Right now, we're sitting in the upper 4s, 4 5/8-ish. We'll probably move towards a 5.1 to 5.2% rate on the high end. Why? The government is stopping the purchase of government bonds over the course of this year. When the government stops or slows down their buying of bonds, rates will go up. Now, are they going to go up to dangerous levels? No. We're going to see a 5, a 5.1, a 5.2. Put this in perspective. You might have missed the 3 5/8 or the 3 3/4 or the 4, but since 1972, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage has averaged 8.6%. So you're still at a 60%.
I had no idea that the average was
where you
that
were,
high.
Yeah. I was missing you.
No, I said I had no idea that that's how high the average was. I've been wondering
Correct.
for a while, so thank you.
So we are still 60% below the average. So it's still very, very affordable. With that said, rates are going to creep up a little bit. Prices, if I factor all this in, we've got a little more supply. Demand should be static just from different people. Rates will get a little higher. We're going to see here in Denver an average appreciation, depending on the neighborhood, depending on the price point, probably in the 5 to 7% range. I would lean a little more towards the upper end of that, but I don't want everybody to get too excited. So that in a nutshell is where I believe we are. It is a great time to be in Denver. We are probably in the healthiest market that we've been in 5 to 7 years. And so we're excited.
Well, hasn't Denver been written up recently? It seems like I'm always reading some magazine, top places to live, and it's always Denver or something right in the Denver metro area. You make the list every time.
Well, we have a lot of things that a lot of people aren't aware of, and some things that we like to joke about is that we love it when they show snowy blizzard Bronco games because it means that people won't be moving here. We love it here. There's a couple of draws to it. Number one, we actually have the most educated workforce in the country. For the, 17 years that I've lived here, we have the highest per capita of graduate and postgraduate degrees. So that helps. We have a very diverse economy. Back in the 80s, we were very heavily invested in mining. We had a mining bust. That prompted a diversification across industry. We're now the home to some different types of companies like Celestial Seasonings, Crocs, some big-time technologies up towards Boulder. So we are very, very diverse from an economic standpoint. Our climate, we have 4 seasons. Yes, we get snow, but we are very, very dry. To give you an idea, today is January the 22nd, correct?
Yep.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's 60 degrees outside. In fact, do I dare turn this so you can see it?
No, don't torture us.
So I won't torture you. But there's not a cloud in the sky. It's about 60 degrees. Now, I'm going to warn you. We have 337 days of sunshine per year. That's more than San Diego. That's more than Miami. So we have a climate. We also have a very educated workforce. We're in the center of the country, almost dead smack in the middle. We're about 80 miles from the dead center. So to get to New York or Boston is about 2.5 hours. To get to LA is about 2 hours. We can go direct to Cabo. We can go direct to Hawaii. We have 4 major sports teams, lots of championships. The thing that people don't realize is that we're very, very small. We still only have roughly 4 to 5 million people in the state. There are more people.
I had no idea.
There are more people in Orange County, California, than there are in Colorado. Not to say that's good or bad for either, but it's very easy to go from one end of town to the other in 30 minutes or less. So, and the last is, we have the largest performing arts center under one roof in the world.
Well, the Colorado Tourism and Denver Tourism Agencies should very much appreciate everything you've been sharing. Good grief, it sounds wonderful. I haven't been there in many years. But let's wrap this up. How can people find you, Wade? I know you can be found on your website at www.wadeperryproperties.com. You can be found on Google Plus at Wade Perry. And on Twitter, not only do you have your Littleton CO, but you also have Wade_Perry.
That's correct.
You can be found on LinkedIn. You can find Wade. And we will look forward to having another market update from you in February. And until then, we will talk to you very soon, Wade. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Susan. It was a real pleasure.
Okay, bye.